Hey everyone, Theo here. Today I'm reviewing the Bigme Hibreak S, a phone that runs on Android 14 and comes with a 5.8-inch Kaleido 3 color e-ink display. First of all, disclaimer, this is a review unit provided by the company, and in this video I'll just present to you my findings so that you can decide whether this is worth the money. The price of this phone at the time of review is $279 for the model with the color e-ink display. And if you want the black and white e-ink display instead, it's $249. So the price of this is more than $100 over lower than the Bigme HiBreak Pro. And in this video, I will compare the two phones to let you guys know the differences. And just to give you the bottom line up front, the Bigme HiBreak Pro is better in many ways, of course. The price of the Bigme Hibreak S is not too expensive, so if you want an affordable phone, this is one you can consider. The main selling features for this phone, in my opinion, is for reading. So the text quality is actually quite good. If you want a phone with an e-ink display, this is definitely one of the more affordable options right now in the market. The design looks, I would say, good enough. Build quality is solid enough even though everything is made with plastic. There's a camera and flash behind, but it's difficult to take photos because it's difficult to check the sharpness on an e-ink display. There is no NFC, so this will not work for over-the-counter wireless payment. The customizable side button here can be configured with many shortcuts. Tray can hold a micro SD card and a nano SIM that supports 4G LTE. There's a front camera, but it does not support face unlock. The speaker sounds okay for audio and calls. There is no speaker at the bottom, so this is clearly a downside. If you have to watch videos on this phone, the audio experience is not ideal because audio is only coming out from one side. And the video watching experience is not ideal because the refresh rate here is not like the 60 Hz refresh rate you get with phones with LCDs. One advantage of having a phone with an e-ink display is it may help you reduce how much time you spend on social media. That's because the visual quality isn't as good compared to LCDs or OLED displays, so you won't be tempted to use social media as much. The power button does not have a fingerprint scanner, so this phone does not support biometric unlock. Always having to type your PIN before you can unlock is quite inconvenient. Having color on an e-ink display can be nice, but having colors is not a must-have in my opinion. The Kaleido 3 e-ink display can show 16 levels of gray and up to slightly over 4,000 colors. The downside here is when you disable the front light, the gray of the e-ink canvas is kinda dark. The background or the canvas for black and white e-ink is noticeably lighter compared to color e-ink display, so the contrast is actually better with black and white e-ink, and contrast is actually more important compared to color, especially when contrast is affected. If you really want to buy this phone, I would recommend you go with the black and white display, which shows more contrast, and that model is $30 lower. Now with this phone, you almost always have to enable the front light unless you're using the phone under direct sunlight. Speaking of front light, there is warm and cool light, and the lighting is quite even, but here you can see this downside. There is light spilling out from the exterior of the frame on all the sides. For this review unit, it's noticeable at the top and the sides, less noticeable at the bottom. The light leaking at the edges is not really an issue unless you like to use your phone in the dark quite often. Now one bug I discovered is sometimes when I adjust the cool light, the warm light would also adjust automatically for some reason. The 5.8-inch display is not ideal for reading comics because the text is going to look really small. Now the refresh animation or the page flip animation is quite smooth. Color quality and the refresh speed will vary depending on which mode you choose. Once you have selected any presets here or customize your own settings, All this will be remembered for that specific app. So you can have one set of settings for reading text, another set for web browsing. The pixel density for color on the HiBreak S is just 96 ppi, and on the HiBreak Pro is 150 ppi. I believe that is the main reason why colored visuals look more vibrant on the HiBreak Pro, and this is with across all the different color modes. Depending on which refresh mode you choose, there may be some image retention or ghosting, but this is really a minor issue. So the colors actually look less saturated on the HiBreak S. Take a look at the blue, the yellow, and the magenta, and here they are just less saturated. And that's another reason why I recommend the black and white model over the color display. Pixel density for black and white on the HiBreak S is 296, and this is the HiBreak Pro with 300 ppi. And you can see the color conversion from color to black and white is actually quite good. This is with default settings, so you can still see some grain with some of the grays, but the black and white just has more contrast. Even for web browsing, I prefer black and white because of the better contrast, and even the text looks darker. So the text definitely looks darker on the black and white e-ink display. This phone actually uses the same MediaTek Helio P35 processor as the original Bigme Hibreak released in mid-2024. So the only updates for this model is Bigme has included the color e-ink option, and they have updated Android 11 to Android 14. If you are using the original Bigme Hibreak, let me and the others know whether the company has provided any upgrade path from Android 11 to 14. I'm not sure how often this phone will get OS and security updates, but chances are there may not be any OS updates. Now, the overall performance of this phone is, I would say, responsive enough. Launching apps may take a split second or more compared to the HiBreak Pro, but for general usage, the overall responsiveness is actually alright. Let's take a look at the software features. There are some software features, and I will talk more about that in greater detail later. The main thing you should know right now is there is support for Google Play Store. Battery life is about 12 hours. Overnight drain is around 4%. So the main selling feature for this phone is the e-ink display. Now, some people may find LCDs or OLED displays to be uncomfortable to read for long periods of time. E-ink is easier on the eyes, so this is better for reading. And also the side benefit or advantage of having an e-ink display is it will make you less likely to use social media because the visuals for social media do not look as good compared to on color displays. So those are the main pros and cons, and now let's move on to the full review. Let's take a look at the items included with the purchase. This is the packaging box, which is quite small, and the phone has the phone case already installed, quick start guide, warranty card, SIM ejector. No charging cable or power adapter are included. So here on my table, I have the Bigme Hibreak Pro black and white selling at $439 US. This is the Bigme Hibreak Pro color, which is $30 US more, so it's $469 US. And this is the Bigme Hibreak S color selling at $279 US. The black and white model is $30 cheaper, so it's $249 US. Now, for this review, I will be comparing these two because they both feature the Kaleido 3 color e-ink displays. This one has the black and white e-ink display. I actually prefer the black and white model because of the better contrast. So the background or the e-ink canvas is noticeably lighter compared to the color e-ink canvas, which is darker. These displays are small, so chances are you're probably not going to be reading comics as the text will look really small. So colors to me is not really necessary. The black and white conversion from color looks pretty good to me. And the contrast looks good on the black and white. So if you want to get the HiBreak S with a black and white display, that's a good option as well, and you can save $30. Between the Pro and the S, the price difference is 100 over US dollars, but the Pro is the much better phone in many ways. So you have to decide whether you want to spend more money to get more features or save money and have fewer features. When I hold the HiBreak S in hand, yes, this is slightly smaller, but I don't feel like the HiBreak Pro is much bigger. So both are quite compact. The weight of the HiBreak S is 170 grams. The HiBreak Pro is 180 grams. The body for the HiBreak Pro is available in two colors, black or white, and the body for the HiBreak S is only available in white. So the HiBreak S is 8.6mm thick. HiBreak Pro is 8.9mm. On the left side of the HiBreak S, we have the SIM tray, and this is a customizable shortcut button. On the HiBreak Pro, there are two customizable buttons. This SIM tray can hold a micro SD card and a nano SIM that supports 4G. Here at the bottom on the S, there is a USB-C charging port, a mic, or maybe two mics. Note that there is no speaker at the bottom. On the Pro, there is one speaker, a USB-C charging port that supports 18-watt charging, and the SIM tray and the mic. This SIM tray can hold two nano SIMs that support 5G. This does not hold any micro SD card. Not having a speaker here is definitely a downside because you will not be able to get true stereo effect. So when you're holding the phone horizontally and watching shows, sound only comes out from one side. Audio quality is okay, call quality is okay. Audio does not sound too hollow, so that's good enough for me. There is no bass, and that's not surprising for mobile phone speakers. There's a 5-megapixel camera here which cannot be used for face unlock, and I'm not sure what these two sensors on the left are for. The speakers on the two phones have similar audio quality, but the audio experience on the Pro is much better because of the stereo effect. On the Pro, there is a 5-megapixel camera as well, and this can be used for face unlock. On the right side of the phones, there is the power button and volume controls, and on the Pro, the fingerprint scanner is built into the power button. So the HiBreak S does not have face or fingerprint unlock, and that's quite inconvenient because you always have to type in your PIN to unlock. On the back of the Pro, there is a 20-megapixel camera and a flash, and there is no camera bump, so this is completely flat. This surface is matte textured, it's quite smooth. I'm not sure whether this is plastic or glass. Anyway, the build quality seems good enough. On the S, there is a 30-megapixel camera and a flash and a very slight camera bump. And this has more texture, and you can see the pattern of the texture. This is definitely plastic. So this is rougher, but it's still considered smooth. Now you can use the phone without the phone case, and it does feel really nice to use it without the phone case, but since the phone case is included, you might as well just use it. It's not going to add too much weight to the phone and provides full protection on all the sides except for the front. And for the HiBreak Pro, there is also the phone case which is included. Yeah, I like the phone case, it's really nice. And with this phone case, there is no more camera bump, and you can see this phone case is actually kind of thick. Taking photos with this phone is challenging because it's difficult to check the sharpness with this display, and there is no optical image stabilization with the lens, so you have to hold the phone really steady to get a sharp photo. And shown on the screen right now is the photo quality you can expect from the camera, and the photo quality is just so-so. This phone does not have NFC, so you can't have over-the-counter wireless payment. I'm not sure if I'm seeing things wrongly, but it seems like the Kaleido 3 display on the S is slightly darker. Anyway, it's not a huge difference. Okay, to unlock the phones, it's so much easier, so much more convenient to use the fingerprint unlock. For the HiBreak S, I have to type in the PIN all the time. And for this review, I did not even set the PIN because I don't want to have to lock and type, lock and type, lock and type. It's very inconvenient. Here's a close-up on the two displays, and I do not have the front light enabled on both. It seems like the HiBreak S display has a slight green tint to it, relatively speaking, compared to the HiBreak Pro, but it's not that obvious. And if I do not have the other phone, but decide to compare, it looks like a typical color e-ink display. So now I want to enable the front light. Unless you're using this under direct sunlight, chances are you almost always have to enable the front light, even if you're using the phones in a bright room. So with the front light enabled, let me just increase this all the way up to 36 and this to 36 as well. Contrast is much better, and you can probably see there is a slight difference with the color of the e-ink canvas. Let's switch to night mode. Yep, they are using the same settings. There is slight difference with the e-ink color of the e-ink canvas. And now my room is much darker, and you can clearly see the difference with the color of the e-ink canvas on both phones. So the Pro seems to have more magenta, relatively speaking, and the S seems to have more green. Okay, let me just enable the, what's this, cool light and reduce the warm light. So there is 36 levels of adjustment for the cool and warm light, and this is the maximum for cool. And now I'm going to increase both the warm and cool to the max. The Pro looks warmer. On the HiBreak S, you can see the front light spilling out from the edge of the phone, actually on all the four sides, including at the bottom, but it's not as obvious at the bottom. And here you can see the light here. On the Pro, there is no such problem with the light spilling from the edge. I've just removed the phone case from the HiBreak S, and you can see the light spilling from the edges can be quite distracting. As for the evenness of the front light, this looks even enough to me. Let me just reduce this to half. So the lighting seems to be quite even. I do not see any unusual wavering glow at the edges, which can happen on some phones with front light or backlight. And for the HiBreak Pro, the front light is also quite even. Resolution of the HiBreak Pro is 824 by 1648. The PPI for black and white is 300, and for color it's 150. The resolution for the HiBreak S is 720 by 1440, so the resolution is slightly lower. The PPI for black and white is 276, and for color it's 92. So the color PPI for the Pro is 150, and on the S it's 92, so that's quite a significant difference. The text quality on both phones look good to me. On the Pro, the text looks sharp, and I'm not sure if you can see the parallel green pattern that's on the e-ink display, but it's actually there if you look really close. And on the HiBreak S, the text looks sharp as well. As for the texture on the e-ink display, it seems like there are tiny little dots instead of the parallel lines that you see here. Now, it may not be obvious because my camera cannot zoom in that close, From normal reading distance away, the background texture is not distracting and it's not really noticeable unless you are looking for it, but it's the background texture that actually makes the color e-ink display look darker compared to black and white e-ink displays. Let's compare the color quality. So here I have a color wheel on both phones, and the e-ink settings is at default. I also have front light enabled. I have customized the side button here to do a refresh when I click it twice. From what I can see, the colors on the HiBreak Pro are more vibrant and the colors on the HiBreak S are more desaturated. On the Pro, some of the colors are quite difficult to differentiate from one another. For example, all the yellows here look kind of similar. The cyan here looks kind of similar. The violets or the magenta here looks kind of similar. And you can see the same for the HiBreak S as well. So I'm going to switch over to the magazine mode, which should have better color quality. And you can see some ghosting. I've just done a full refresh to remove the ghosting, and at a glance I can see very clearly that the colors are still more vibrant on the HiBreak Pro. And now you can see the colors are easier to differentiate from one another. And also if you look at the wheel in the middle, the colors here are lighter, and at the outer edges they are more saturated. And on the HiBreak S, in the middle is lighter, on the outer edges they are more separated. So the main difference between these two is the colors are more vibrant on the HiBreak Pro. Next we'll look at the comic setting. Let's do a refresh again. And same on the HiBreak S. And I can see some of the colors again are grouped together, like for example these 5 green colors, they look identical. Same here. Colors are still more vibrant on the HiBreak Pro, more desaturated on the HiBreak S. Next we'll look at the video mode. Let's do a full refresh again. So once again I can see the colors are more vibrant on the HiBreak Pro, and some of the colors are difficult to differentiate from one another. And if you look really close, the colors are now more grainy, so you can see the texture on the colors. You do not see the textures on the colors with magazine or comic mode. And here you can see textures on most of the colors. Let's take a look at some colored comic pages. So this is with default mode and also with the front light enabled, and colors on the HiBreak Pro are more vibrant. So with the default mode, the page flip animation is actually quite smooth. There is minimal ghosting. I can see the black on the HiBreak Pro is also darker, so there is better vibrancy with the colors, and also contrast is better here. Let's switch to comic mode for comics. Yep. Colors are noticeably more vibrant here on the HiBreak Pro. And with the comic mode, as I flip, you can see the page refresh, the flicker, which is quite obvious, can be quite distracting. Yep, colors are more vibrant here. Let's switch over to magazine mode. By the way, how much image retention or ghosting you can see will depend on which refresh mode you choose. So this is magazine mode, and colors are more vibrant. Blacks are also darker, contrast is better. As I flip through the pages, you can see the page animation is slower, and there is also very obvious page refresh. Yep. So the color quality is definitely better on the HiBreak Pro. Here you can see some speech bubbles. So when I flip to the next page, you can see the image retention here. And on the HiBreak S, there is actually no image retention with this magazine mode, interestingly. Let me flip back again and flip forward. Yep, there is actually less image retention. And this is with comic mode. So I'm going to flip to the next page again, flip back, flip forward just to see whether there is image retention. And there is more image retention on the HiBreak Pro. If I really want to read comics, I would set the refresh mode to default instead for the smoother page flip animation, because I find the flickering or the page redraw to be a bit distracting. So with default mode, as I flip over, you can see both displays have minimal image retention or ghosting with the default refresh mode. Kaleo 3 displays can produce 16 levels of grays and up to almost 4,000 number of colors. And that's actually a very limited number of colors compared to LCD displays that can produce 16 million colors or more. So due to the limited number of colors these displays can produce, certain color information will be lost. For the HiBreak S, the colors are less saturated, so there is even fewer colors. Here you can see the roads are green, here the roads are almost gray. There are actually buildings here, but I cannot see the outline or the shape of the buildings because of the lack of color information. So in order to show the buildings, I will have to tweak the colors manually. Now let's switch over to magazine mode. Yeah, let's close this. So with magazine mode, I still do not see the buildings. And also with magazine mode, as you pan around, you can see the very obvious flicker. So this is not usable at all with Google Maps. And you cannot use comic mode as well because of the flicker. Let's go to video mode and have a look. Video mode will give you very smooth animation, but we still do not see the shape or the outlines of the buildings, which is what I want to see. So you will have to use your own custom settings. So let's use custom, and let's maybe go into color adjust. Okay, so here I have the contrast set to maximum. Yeah, I do need it to be maximum. And here on the HiBreak S, let's have the same setting. Okay, so now as I zoom in, I'm not sure if you can see it, but now there is actually the outline for the building. There is a triangular building here. Yeah, it's here, but it's still quite difficult to see. So you will still need to adjust the colors to get more contrast. Let's increase the vividness, maybe the brightness. Nope, not the brightness. We need the vividness, vivid enhancement to go all the way up. Maybe let's reduce the contrast slightly. Yeah, you have to find this setting that can let you get the best contrast, and it will take a while. So this is the best I can do with Google Maps. The buildings are still kind of difficult to see, but at least now I can still see them. And I can see some flickering with the display. I'm not sure what's happening. So maybe the display is refreshing in the background. The flickering is obviously not good because when it flickers, it's constantly redrawing the page. So it's going to use more battery. So I'm just going to switch the refresh mode back to default. And now there is no more flickering. So that is the limitation with current color e-ink technology right now, the limited number of colors that color e-ink can display. Another potential issue with user experience is when you use web pages or any app with a text box or a search box, some of the search boxes or text boxes cannot be seen easily because the outline for the text box cannot be seen easily. So when you cannot see the text box, you will have to spend some time to search for the text box. Let's talk about the overall performance of the phones. Now these two phones are both quite responsive. The processor in the HiBreak Pro is the MediaTek Dimensity 1080, and in the HiBreak S is the MediaTek Helio P35. Now, the HiBreak Pro has a much more powerful processor than the HiBreak S, like maybe 2, 3, or even 4 times more powerful here. So this phone, which is more expensive, is going to have better longevity. There is 8 gigs of RAM here, 6 gigs of RAM, 256 gigs of internal storage without the micro SD card storage expansion, 128 gigs of internal storage with micro SD card expansion. For RAM usage, it's actually fine. 6 gigs of RAM is actually fine for an e-ink device. I have no issues with multitasking. By multitasking, I mean having many apps in the memory. You can't actually multitask with 2 windows on the phones. For a device that is made to be used with reading apps, the performance is definitely more than good enough. And now let's talk about the software features. And since the software is kind of similar for both phones, I shall just focus on the HiBreak S. When I first set up the phone, I don't see much bloatware. Let's take a look at navigation bar. Navigation bar is this little circular button that you can move around on the display. And when you tap on it, it would open up 9 shortcuts which you can customize. So the button that I clicked on earlier will let you customize the shortcuts, or you can customize the shortcuts by pressing the settings button here. Having access to more shortcuts is always useful. The downside here is when you hide the navigation bar, it can be quite difficult to find where that bar is. For notifications, you can swipe here on the top left, and I do not have any there. And this is the control panel. The shortcuts here can be customized, so you can tap here and add or remove shortcuts from the 9 that are shown here, or flip through the shortcuts. Here at the bottom, you can choose the front light settings, and right here you can choose the volume, or you can use the volume buttons by the side. And here you can see I have the Android navigation bar enabled. This provides me with 5 shortcuts, but this does not show all the time. For some of the apps that open full screen, they will hide the navigation bar. For example, if you are watching videos in full screen, you won't see the navigation bar, and now you have to swipe up to use it. Or you can use gestures instead of the navigation bar. Let me go into the settings. Under Quick and Assist, you can customize the gestures. So here you can customize the custom key on the left side. Let me show you what shortcuts you can customize. You can customize the actions, single click, double click, or long press. And these are the options. I find it quite useful to set back or home screen to one of the actions, either a single click or a double click. And for long press, I have it set to e-ink center. So there are several options you can use here. For the side button, under gesture and virtual keys, you can enable the bottom navigation bar, and there are several shortcuts you can choose, but these are pre-programmed shortcuts, or you can use the gesture navigation and disable the bottom bar. So now you can swipe to the home screen, swipe here at the bottom right for a full refresh, or swipe left for the app switcher. You can also set to swipe the left and right to adjust the front light or cool light, and swiping in from the left or right will go back. I actually kind of like the bottom navigation bar, because with the navigation bar I get 5 shortcuts instead of 3 for this gesture navigation. The float bar is the navigation bar. This is Bigme's UI running on top of Android 14, and I'm not sure if the phone will be getting future Android OS updates. You do not need a Bigme account in order to use this phone. I did not sign into my Bigme account here. Now, there aren't many features. So if you need more features, you can always open Google Play Store, find an app to get you whatever feature you want. Let's go through some of the settings to see if I have missed out anything. Okay, wallpaper, screensaver. I don't recommend using wallpaper for this phone because when you have a wallpaper with images behind, it can be quite difficult to see the icons, the apps, due to, well, color contrast issues. So I just like to have the background blank. Okay, this is actually the screensaver or the always on display, and there are 4 options. I'm not sure why you cannot tap on the navigation here to move through different options. You have to use the arrow buttons. Okay, so this is option number 1, where you can choose to display a clock or not show a clock. It's always useful to have the clock. You can set the clock refresh interval, and I usually set it to 5 minutes. You can have a background image. Just select the background image. And now let's look at option 2, which is a blank screen. Option 3 is also a blank screen except with the Bigme logo. Option 4 is more useful because you can set the clock. You can set the clock refresh interval. You can also see the calendar at the bottom, but this is not Google Calendar. It's just a very simple calendar that does not retrieve data from anywhere. You can set the light or dark mode. The light mode will look much better. When the phone goes to sleep, this is what you will see. And when there is a notification, there will be a pop-up that appears here, and you have to type in your PIN to unlock before you can go in. One downside with Bigme UI is there is no app drawer. So if you swipe up, it goes to the app switcher. If you swipe down, you see the notifications. So if you want to search for an app, you have to swipe left, do a search here. Let's look for local send. Okay, it's there. You can install other keyboards, but the default keyboard looks the best because of the high contrast buttons. And the typing experience is, I would say, good enough. There is also haptic when typing. Typing is quite responsive. I discovered a bug with the app switcher. So sometimes when I want to open an old app, the app switcher would crash. And sometimes if I want to, well, open an old app, the app that is open will actually be the wrong app. Yeah, it can be quite difficult to reproduce. So let me open YouTube Music and have a look. Okay, now it's the crashing bug that I'm facing, not the opening the wrong app bug. If you're using this phone in Singapore, the face verification that's required by SingPass does not work no matter how many times I tried. So if you want verification, you need to ask the government to send you like a letter with the verification code. Here you can see some banking apps, and some of the apps that you use may give you the option to use biometric to unlock the apps, but without biometric, it can be quite tedious to always type in the password or PIN to unlock those apps. Oh, another thing I want to tell you is when you choose to add apps to the folder, the apps are not arranged in alphabetical order, so it's very difficult to find the app that you want. And there is no search box to search the app. So after you have installed an app from Google Play Store, you have to, drag and drop to move it into the folder that you want. Okay, I believe I have covered almost everything I wanted to say about the Bigme Hibreak S. To conclude, this is a decent phone, but it lacks many features, which is why the price is much lower compared to the Bigme HiBreak Pros. More specifically, the feature that I wish was included that is missing is the fingerprint scanner. So if you are looking for a phone with an e-ink display and don't want to spend too much, the Bigme Hibreak S is an option you can consider. But if you can stretch your budget, I would actually recommend the Bigme HiBreak Pro instead, because they have like more features. More specifically, I would recommend the one with the black and white e-ink display, because the contrast looks better and because I feel like color is not necessary.